Welcome to the HCR Digital Asset Group podcast series where we interview thought leaders in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space. Our focus today is on asset-backed tokens. For a bit of a background, despite the rapid growth of ICOs in the past year, with quite a few raising hundreds of millions, we are seeing the market cool down recently and instead hearing a lot of discussion with regard to asset-backed tokens. These tokens are essentially backed by underlying assets such as real estate or precious metals, which theoretically should mean less volatility and a price floor. At HGR, we believe that the rise of asset-backed tokens is positive for the industry as it would potentially usher in a wave of institutional investors. The token we'll be exploring today is backed by fine art. Masterworks is a first-of-a-kind blockchain project that allows investors to buy and trade shares of great masterpieces by artists like Picasso, Monet, and Warhol. We are very excited to welcome Richard McBeath, VP of Growth at Masterworks, to tell us about how it is democratizing ownership in the world's greatest masterpieces through blockchain. Thanks for joining our podcast today, Richard.
You're welcome. Great to be here.
All right. So to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you guys do at Masterworks?
Yeah, sure. So I head up the marketing and growth department at Masterworks. And Masterworks is a platform that, in essence, allows people to buy and sell shares in iconic masterpieces. So back in October of 2017, Masterworks was founded with its first purchase or acquisition of an Andy Warhol for $1.85 million. Shortly after the acquisition, the painting was securitized, tokenized, and ultimately qualified with the SEC under Reg A+. So what that essentially means is investors, both non-accredited and accredited investors, can purchase shares in these artworks. In June of 2018, we had our second painting acquisition, which was a $6.3 million Monet. So the same sort of process that we go through with securitizing and tokenizing each asset. So where we are in terms of the qualification of with the SEC, we're a matter of sort of weeks away from what looks like will be the first Reg A+ tokenized securities offering to enter the market. So we're super excited about that.
Yeah, that's very exciting. So, I mean, Masterworks, I see it as more of an asset-backed token, which is very different from Bitcoin and some of the other coins that essentially do not have an asset to back up its value. So why do you think people should invest in asset-backed token?
Yeah, exactly that. It's a more sort of understood mechanic of investing. Having something that's a token of security that's backed by something of a given value, and something that's physically sort of in the space, like art or whether it's property or other sort of assets. It's far easier to sort of to sell and understand from a traditional background. So the education and understanding around sort of what gives Bitcoin value is a complicated one without a real sort of firm answer. It's supply, demand, and a whole lot of unknown. Whereas with something like fine art or real estate, as mentioned, there is historical sort of trends, comparables, and data to support why something is valued at a certain sort of level.
Right. So from a customer perspective, it's easier for them to accept this type of concept.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a feeling of sort of some form of like safety and security around asset-backed tokens. Again, because it's an more sort of easily digestible and an explainable concept when looking to sort of back a sort of tokenized security with an asset. Certainly from our experience and what we're seeing in the market.
Right. Yeah. So as an art fan myself, I understand that counterfeit paintings plague the current scene. What is the process in which you vet the paintings?
Yeah. So just to sort of even jump back to how Masterworks was founded, and although October 2017 seems like an early stage company, The founder, Scott Lin, is an extremely successful internet entrepreneur who's been building tech companies for the last 2 decades, and ultimately sort of valued collectively at over $1 billion. But Scott's sort of passion, aside from tech, has been in art collection, specifically in fine art. So for the last 2 decades, Scott has amassed a top 100 collection globally, recognized in the art world. His art pieces are displayed in a number of sort of top-end institutions globally. So it was really a matter of sort of passions collide for Masterworks, and something that's been in the making for the last 2 decades, as I said. Yeah, so the strategy that we really implement is purely based around sort of purchasing of artworks by blue chip artists. So these are artists that we obviously have a lot of historical data on. We have the provenance records, and we have sort of comparables in terms of sales of similar paintings and the actual painting itself. So these blue chip artists include, as I mentioned, we have a Monet, who's the second highest selling artist in history. We have Andy Warhol, which is the top selling artist in American history and the third top selling artist globally, just behind Picasso and Monet. So these are artists that, again, have just proven time and time again to really appreciate and value over time, which ultimately is what we're really looking to sort of communicate to our investors.
Right. So, on the topic of how you select art, we want to talk about how do these organizations value art, right? On your
Mm-hmm.
site, you kind of mentioned that you see art that's over 1 million kind of appreciate year over year, and the ones
Yeah.
that are below it depreciates over time. Like, what sort of sources do you guys use to kind of tell you what the value of some of these art pieces are? I'm sure
Yeah,
it's
certainly. And
well-known ones, but get
y-
down to the lower value one, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult, and there's more diligence required, right?
yeah, indeed. And the art market is generally sort of like quite archaic in how they deal with data and essentially like filing and statistics and market research and also, I mean, outside of like crypto, I feel like it's probably one of the most unregulated markets in the world. So there is a lot of sort of manual labor and time and effort that needs to be put into due diligence, market research and analysis, and identification of these specific pieces. Now we're lucky enough, of course, to have individuals like Scott, who again has sort of had 2 decades of experience working within these markets and with these sort of institutions like Christie's, Sotheby's, Phillips, the sort of top auction houses. But in-house, we also have, experienced art buyers and market analysts from those auction houses, such as Christie's. So they bring a wealth of experience with them, as well as access to resource that just the majority of the market would never have access to, nor really understand. This sort of knowledge and experience and expertise really comes from working sort of under the hood of within these institutions for an extended period of time, and we're just lucky enough to have these people in house working with Masterworks full time, day to day, on this specifically.
Yeah, and definitely Masterworks exposing consumers to both crypto and fine art. That's unique already, but how else does Masterwork differentiate itself?
It's again, we have the experts in house, which again is a huge differentiator, and having again access to people and institutions and auction houses and that sort of thing is really what sort of, I think, puts us miles ahead of anyone else in the space and anyone else who really look to enter the space. Having technology experts who understand not only blockchain and crypto, but just generally the function of finance and trading, as well as the sort of combination of these art specialists. It really comes down to the power of the people. And just as when you sort of invest in a fund, you typically like closely analyzed the historic performance of the team and what they've bought. We don't expect people to be art specialists and spend hours, days, weeks sort of researching sort of why the artwork is sort of going to appreciate value and what gives it value. A big part of what we offer as a business is that sort of that comfort that you're dealing with people that have done it before and done it for a long time across the board. So again, anyone can sort of raise capital and run out and sort of purchase expensive artworks, but really identifying those investment grade pieces that we see are going to appreciate over time, and doing such a thorough analysis on this is something that really sets us apart.
Yeah, I definitely think that from a consumer perspective, this is offering something different, because now you're winding the pool of people who can invest in these really expensive art pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But and you do have an advantage from being a first mover, but who are your main competitors? Because I'm assuming that you're also competing with other art organizations that are experts at
Yeah,
art and have these technologies. And what is your value proposition, and how will you kind of gain a bigger market than these people who already have a set of customers that consistently is purchasing and looking at art?
yes, sure. And look, I think that there's sort of a direct competitor set, which looks at those that are looking to also sort of offer fractional ownership of these sort of typically inaccessible art pieces. So you've got those direct competitors, but we're ultimately sort of selling an alternative asset here. So we do also have sort of like REITs and other companies in the space that are offering fractional ownership of property and virtual assets, and even things like cattle. It's an example I use often, which is when I was working for sort of Argon Group, raising capital for companies both on the security side of things and the utility side of things. One of the the really interesting parts of that was seeing the creativity of what can be tokenized and what is being tokenized. So it really becomes now a competitive market that isn't just sort of sector specific or industry specific. These alternative investments are expanding rapidly, and look, it's competition, but at the same time, we have a long way to go as an industry at large, in educating investors and the retail side of things that there are opportunities far sort of superior to the known and understood stock market and investing in indexes such as S&P 500. And so there's we welcome competition, and we welcome new players coming to market. And we're one of those. We certainly can beat our chest saying that we have the right people and the right infrastructure. But there's sort of a long road ahead to really getting mass adoption across the asset class, let alone purchasing into tokenized securities.
I never thought about it that way, but I guess I do see your point. You're not competing with other asset-backed tokens. You have to really prove that the value to the consumer from investing in a masterpiece type of art is going to be more than if they were investing in certain types of real estate. I kind of see you guys maybe focusing on a niche market that has both an appreciation and vested interest in art, but then also are looking to invest in asset-backed tokens, and maybe that would be your loyal customer base.
Yeah, and it's a really sort of interesting point, and something that we just we're actively exploring, and it is that sort of the definition of who where is sort of the low-hanging fruit, who is interested now and who will be interested in the future, and certainly we have our buckets of those that are interested in art and want to sort of participate in purchasing for potentially sort of the emotional benefit, of owning, a fraction of a Monet, or owning a fraction of like Andy Warhol. So there's certainly that sort of target in terms of consumer. But but again, we're really looking at those guys who invest through, say, Robinhood on the retail side of things, that are just looking to sort of put their money, their spare change into something
Hmm.
that ultimately will return more than just a sort of, sitting cash in a savings account. And of course, we're also looking to, engage with the larger institutions, the whales, crypto whales that are really looking to, to invest in something that shows a solid return. It's certainly not the sort of 2017 October to February 2018 returns of utility tokens on the crypto market, but look, it's about sort of managing those expectations now and saying, the traditional markets, S&P 500 over the last 20 years has returned 8.33%. Fine art has produced 10.71% compound annual growth. So the returns are there. The asset class is really exciting. The technology now allows us to sort of slice these previously inaccessible assets up into bite-sized pieces and offer it to the market at large. So, we really hope that people are, essentially as excited as we are. And to date, we've had 4,000 registered customers or investors sign up online and indicate interest for our 2 offerings to date. So things are looking, really exciting early on, and we just sort of hope to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and it's an exciting time to be head of growth. And I kind of want to talk about where you see Masterworks expanding to regionally or maybe other business areas. Our co-founder Tato and I, we were discussing, and he really sees Masterworks going down to form some sort of syndicate to major exchanges so that token holders can also participate in highly coveted auctions for these rare paintings that are high value. But
Yeah.
where do you see Masterworks expanding into?
Yeah, look, and I think it's sort of it's step by step, and we're really sort of, there's new opportunities that open up, day by day. Our focus right now is to essentially build out our sort of assets under management, continue to sort of identify those artworks that are really sort of that are solid investment pieces, investment grade. And then you mentioned geography, and that's certainly something that we can start to explore down the line with the Asian market being absolutely second largest in the world to the US. Of course, over in the UK, it's the 3rd largest market for fine art and purchasing. So geographically, yes, we certainly can look to expand out. But look, at this point in time, we're really just focused on getting these first sort of few offers to market, ensuring that the qualification through SEC is all sort of we tick all the boxes and that runs smoothly. Of course, we're very excited about the prospects of the securities exchanges entering the market to also provide us the liquidity that we also desperately want with securities tokens, and then we'll ultimately see sort of where we land in the coming sort of few months. But for now, it's we're just highly focused on providing a really quality sort of product and service on those specific art pieces, and ensuring that our investors see solid returns. And once we deliver on that, we can sort of look to spread our wings.
I want to kind of take this up a level and understand your perspective on the crypto markets. How do you see the rise of asset-backed tokens impacting the crypto markets?
Well, like I said, I think that it's absolutely heading in the right direction. I think we'll see a lot of the sort of the hype around specific sort of utility tokens sort of mature, and that market will really come to. On the asset-backed token side of things, again, like we just sort of mentioned, in order to really drive crypto forward and sort of introduce this mass adoption across the board, we need the institutions on board, and we need sort of government authorities to feel far more comfortable with how things are working. And again, asset-backed tokens, or purchasing equity or shares or fractional ownership in these sort of like traditional and more sort of understood assets is the right way forward. And as mentioned, it looks like we're likely to have the first Reg A plus SEC qualified securities token offering, which is a huge step for us, but also a huge step for the market, because it's saying that essentially we are being given the green light to push forward. And this process, we've been in it for the last 6 months, and we're a matter of weeks away. So I really think that asset-backed tokens makes a lot of sense from a business standpoint, and it makes a load of sense from a consumer standpoint. Giving access to assets that were traditionally just unattainable, again, whether it's real estate, or it's fine art, or it's, again, cattle, or any sort of other infrastructure, is just a really exciting space to be. And again, if you can put a value to something and slice it up into smaller pieces for a broader market to participate, then I just think it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, you're definitely seeing a lot of support from the U.S. government. Do you feel like the governments around the world will also support asset-backed tokens the way that you've seen some of the policies happening now in the U.S.?
Yeah, definitely. Look, if the US is gonna move forward with it, I feel like they are one of the most conservative on this side of things, almost globally. I think they'll sort of set precedent for the rest of the world in a lot of ways. They've sort of trod very lightly, and I think sort of rightly so. They're really sort of spending the right amount of time analyzing the market and overseeing how things can work moving forward. So yeah, I think again, this is in its most basic form. It's sort of it's like we're creating a sort of a stock market for artwork, or fine art. Other people will be creating stock markets for other assets. So again, when you peel it back, it's sort of no different than owning a share or a piece of equity in a business, in Apple, in Google. And that's essentially how we're sort of pitching it and positioning it, and also that's just sort of the realities of exactly what's going on.
That's really interesting. Just the diversification of the type of assets you can invest in as a consumer will be really exciting to see.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
before I let you go, I just have one more question, fun question
Sure.
for you. So what is one of your favorite pieces
But
of Masterworks?
I'm a Warhol fan. It's something that I can understand. He launched sort of that pop culture. It's something I would hang on my wall, and from sort of appreciating something for its aesthetic, it definitely sort of ticks the boxes for me. Of course, I can appreciate sort of what Monet did, in the time that he was sort of creating these masterpieces, and what he sort of brought to art and culture. But Warhol, for me, was he created some really exciting, colourful things, and again, from just a general appreciation of art and the visual itself, I would certainly love to have one of those pieces hanging on my wall.
Wow, that's very interesting. Colorful, edgy, modern. Well, thank you so much for joining our podcast. We really enjoyed
Sure.
having you here, and best of luck with everything you're doing at Masterworks.